Check, check, check. 1, 2. Cool. We're live. All right. Hold on, guys. Let me pour myself a drink. All right. Cheers, guys. All right. Welcome back to the Waking Up from Work podcast. You're listening to episode 103 tonight. This is your host, Dave Swillem, and happy to have you here. This is where we get to work, making work a passion, living creative full time. So tonight is going to be another solo short one here. For those who have been following along, you're probably used to this where we do a couple interviews, then we bring in like a solo micro content just to dive in deeper on something that I've either been thinking about facing or diving deeper into myself in the current time, or to go in further on something that maybe we've wanted to that we can't necessarily when we have a guest that's got so much cool stuff to give. So every once in a while we go solo like this and dive in deeper. And tonight I wanted to go into getting recentered or staying centered. And I'll explain that in a second here. One reason I think that that's really important right now is because at this point, I think that just about anyone, not just the creative community here, just about everyone in the entire world right now, living in the amount of COVID times we've been in, over a year at this point, everyone is getting burnt out quicker, or they're just getting tired quicker, or they're not centered. And I think that right now is a very important time to be aware of that and to be doing something proactively about it. And so I guess what brought it in for me is, I'm working on this project right now. It's not ideal, but I'm back to doing things like 7 days a week right now, and just really going at it, which is fine, just to get to some like hump day things, to get to some goals and get over the hump on some things here. So it's a short-term plan to do things like that anyway, but whenever I do this, it burns me out quicker naturally because I'm not giving myself like a Sabbath day or like a day off. And when you get to that point, you become aware of it usually. And sometimes people choose to push past it, and you are aware of it. You're like, I'm aware that I'm really burnt right now and I'm just kind of going through the motions, but I need to push on anyway. And you get to a spot where you're not being productive, or you're not being yourself, or you're not doing things to the best of your ability, or you're just wasting, valuable time where you're just not enjoying things at all because you're just burnt or you're just not centered. And so I got to a spot like that where Meg and I have been planning to take a little break, take a little time away, and mix stuff up a little bit to just stir the pot and get freshened up a little bit with our heads. But we were planning like to kind of get through this project, get to this phase of the project and get through this couple months here before we did that. We just realized that we couldn't. We just straight up couldn't do it because we were burnt earlier in than we had planned on, and we just booked a trip. Boom, booked a couple nights in an Airbnb. So maybe not the vacation that I should be taking, because that's would be good for me, but a little 3 or 4 days away, doing something different, doing something internal to mix things up is what we chose to do. So let's talk about this really quick. Like, what does being centered mean? And this is my own interpretation of it. I don't know if there's a specific thing out there, so don't get mad at me. This could be Dave talk here, but being centered to me means a couple things. Like, first of all, it's having a true north. It's having that compass. It's having, every day when I wake up, what is it that I'm trying to have happen in general? And like, what things am I about that are part of that, and helping fulfill that and helping feel that way. And so when you're not centered, you're kind of all over. You're not really doing things always with intention. Sometimes you're doing things in routine. You're just doing the actions, playing the moves that you're supposed to do. Like, you wake up and you just do whatever life hands you. When you're not centered, you're not really living with intent. You're just kind of doing it. You're just waking up and you're doing what's happening that day, and you're going to bed and then you're doing it again. So when you're not centered, it can be that way. And then in general, it's just, when you haven't talked to yourself, and I don't mean like talking out loud like I am right now as a crazy guy podcasting on a single episode, talking to myself by talking to you. I mean, like getting a moment where you're actually taking true time to be present, and maybe not even present with someone else, but like entirely present, to stop, not get distracted by things like social, not get distracted by people wanting to hang out or whatever it may be that is distracting you, and really taking some time to figure out and reflect, like, how am I doing with stuff? Why do I do this action? Do I enjoy this? What's the reasons behind why I do some of the things that I do? Are some of the things that I'm doing not serving me? Are they helping me? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? There's a lot of times where when we're not centered and we're not feeling like we wake up and we have a true north and we have what's going on, it's really difficult sometimes to know why it is that you do something without having something that really freezes things. And sometimes that's straight up a vacation, just like a relaxing vacation. Sometimes being relaxed like that centers you because you're back into a zone where you can, relax a little bit and stop and think like that. Sometimes it needs to be something that shakes things up, and it's something that's totally a different vacation than you would do, where it really challenges your thoughts and just makes it so that you can't think the same way as that routine was when you weren't centered, and just all of these things. So getting to where I came in to think about this, I wasn't feeling like, this doesn't mean that you don't have like a vision or a plan. We talk about all these things on the show all the time where you have like, what is your overarching goal? What is the thing that you're trying to accomplish? What is that true north? You might know the true north. You might know kind of what that mission is and things like that, but maybe you're just not connecting with it. They're just very different things. I know what I'm trying to do. I'm working in my project every day. I'm doing things that are accomplishing it. I'm checking boxes off. But lately, for the past like month or so, I've just been like just doing whatever it was that I put on the day, but like really wasn't there. I like really was not present when I was doing it. And the biggest indicator for me, when you need a little bit of this love, need a little bit of attention to this for yourself, the biggest indicator for me is when you're doing the thing that you have always, always loved, and it doesn't mean anything to you at that moment. So I love audio. You know that. I talk about it day and night. When I'm working on a project and I'm just like not into it, and it's not like the project itself, like maybe I was in the past, it's like multiple projects, you're sitting there and it's like the thing that you absolutely love, and you're just like still not really like getting something from it. That is when I know I'm like, shit, I cannot wait on this at all. I need to address this immediately because something's up. Something has to be figured out and like realigned a little bit so that I can be in my spot where I need to be at. So recently, we felt that way. Meg and I, this is one thing I've learned about myself is my way. Every person's way might be different to do this. So your way might be different than my way. My way, it seems from what I'm learning about myself, is I need to go places where I have no human activity at all. Like I don't engage with humans. And it's most likely because I spend so much time engaging with humans. And my day job is like a sales job. So straight up just talking to people all day long. And then on here, on social, on whatever, I'm constantly talking to people, which is what I love. But what that means is that when I need to get away and kind of realign, refix things, I've realized that that means going somewhere where I don't have human activity, where I have no engagement or connection or anything, so that I can only talk to myself and only see what's under the hood, because I really can't do that unless I'm in that situation. So recently, I stayed with Meg. We went away to an off-grid cabin in a town with the population of 47, right? Smallest town in Maine. We went away to this off-grid cabin. It was straight up kerosene lanterns, like no lights, no running water. They had like a gravity fed system that we used to clean plates. All the heating was through a wood burning stove. You had to like be really careful outside because there's lots of animals out there that have never had human contact and are very large and aggressive. So we went away for about 3.5, 4 nights. Wait, 3.5 days, 2 nights, 3 nights, something like that. It wasn't a crazy long vacation. But when you're out there, first of all, there was like a quiet that I don't know that I've ever even heard in my life. Like I heard no cars, I heard no people, no, like we turned off our phones entirely. I heard absolutely nothing when I was outside, and it was very strange. It was an extremely surreal experience to just actually hear no noise. Like, yes, things in the woods, but it's like you can almost ignore that. No sounds, right? And then on the day to day, we had no electricity, no communication, no nothing. So it's like I read, I played guitar, and I wrote, and I hiked. That's all I did for 3 or 4 days. And so there are people out there that you might not, you might like amenities and stuff, and maybe that like makes you comforted and like that helps you. So like I don't think that that experience is for everyone. Like I think on this podcast before I've told you about going to like a remote island for a week that had no electricity or running water. Like I that's what I've learned about myself. I need those situations, and to do new situations where I am just without any connection at all, and with including people, technology, anything. That's like really what I need, is to like stop it and have a place that I can talk to myself in a way that is really, really just me and me. Because when you're in that type of quiet, that type of no connection, that type of nothing happening, there is nothing else to do except for think. Like I told you, I read books and I hiked and I played guitar. But even when we hiked, we were out for like 3 or 4 hours or more, and there's nothing to do but think. And that helps me recenter. That's a good thing that helps me recenter, because I do actually stop and think. Whereas when you're used to like appointments and schedule and the calendar and the Zoom meetings and the whatever, like just constantly you have the things on the calendar on the day to day and you're just constantly going from one to the other. I don't always think between those. Sometimes there is reflection that happens, but it's just not the same thing as when there's nothing to do except for reflect on things for days at a time. And there's that type of quiet that really helps me figure out, okay, what things are good that I'm doing to me? Why do I do some of the things that I do? What things should I stop doing? Like what am I doing just because it's the rounds and I'm just making the rounds? Like why am I doing some of those things that shouldn't happen? And then what really matters, and how do I think about myself? Like how cool am I with me? And those are really hard questions to ask, and they're also not frequently asked. And those check-ins as you get older, I feel like are so important, especially when you're talking about this creative community right here, people who are musicians and artists and creatives and business owners, where your job is to create things. It is really difficult to create things if you kind of don't know what matters to you and where you stand. And this was an experience. This is something that helps for me. So this is something I think that comes out of not doing enough short-term things. So this is like a long-term way to get centered, is to do something that breaks up the monotony or the day-to-day or the routine. Even if your routine is stuff that you love, do something that breaks it up in a way where maybe it's just straight up a vacation for you. Maybe it's like me and you go way remote. Maybe it's going to see like a friend somewhere. Like just usually it's like some type of travel, even if it's like a localized travel. But even if it's like close to home, like rent a place, like go somewhere 30 minutes from here, but just be in a different place for a couple of days and do things differently. Like just mix shit up on yourself. That's like a long-term thing. That's like a longer solution. I also want to talk about day-to-day ways to get centered. And these are the things that I think that I am bad at right now, which make it so that I have to do more of those like freak out moments of being like, holy shit, I got to get away right now. I got to go and do something right now. Those are the things that I think can help you so you don't get to where I'm at, because I don't do those enough. And this is something that recently, for anyone out there that's in my audio mastermind, this is something we talked about a lot in a last call we did, how to avoid burnout as an audio engineer or musician. And that was like a 2-hour conversation in that mastermind group really great information, great people in there. So thank you to anyone in that group. But we talked about these a lot on that. And so that is, what short-term things can you do frequently that help you avoid burnout? Burnout to me is kind of the same way as like not being centered. If you're burnt out, you're not like centered with what needs to be happening right now in yourself. And so we heard a lot of different things on there. And I shared some things as well. And so that's like, what are you doing on the day-to-day during and throughout the day to make it so that maybe you can avoid some of these longer ones because you are doing some of these things. So that could be, for everyone out there that during COVID, working from home, go walk the dog for lunch. Like go, like even when you're at work, I think Meg does this at work a lot, where she goes for a walk around the parking lot or like goes out for a walk somewhere. Try going for a walk at lunch and find some way to do that. Take a little bit of time to get outside and do something that just disrupts that office space or disrupts your home office. Take the dog for a walk, go for a run. Obviously, like I think on episode 10, even like way early into the show, we talked about like exercise and like what that does for your body. Maybe it is going out for a drink with a coworker or a friend after work that you haven't seen in a bit and not talking shop and not talking business. Like right now, like today I was at like a after work event for my day job, and it's like I don't want to talk about any of the stuff in that isn't just messing around and just whatever in life, because that's part of the problem. Like talking business is something that I like to do even when I'm like at a party or I'm like hanging out. I just love talking business. I truly enjoy it. I truly enjoy the music industry and talking about those things. But sometimes it's just really important to not talk about those things and to talk about different things, because you're more than what that one thing is. And so on the day to day, what are some things that you can do to recenter yourself so that the day isn't so crushed up and not so crazy and chaotic and on the run? Like I said, the walk, a run, maybe some exercise at some point, maybe a drink with your colleague, maybe stop and schedule it in the morning to go read a book or journal. Maybe it is, I don't even know, taking time to like cook your dinner if you usually order in or you do whatever. I really enjoy cooking. It just like breaks things up if I cook a meal with Meg or something like that. But all of this is to say, if you are feeling stupid burnt out from this year, I 100% feel you. If you're feeling burnt out because you are side hustling or you're a weekend warrior like me, where you are working and then working and then working in the day, working at night, working on the weekends, it will destroy you if you don't find something that works for you to be able to get yourself here. And the way that it differs for me for burnout, like burnout versus being centered, the solution can work for both of these things. But I think one thing that's really important to do every once in a while is put yourself in a situation that works for you to talk to yourself. And that means being present. It means not having something to distract you. And a lot of people do meditation. That's one way of doing this, but which I plan to get into that I haven't yet. But just finding a way to speak with yourself true and reflect. And those are things that I don't think that we ever give ourselves time to do. And it's really easy when you're in the middle of it for it to be broken by some type of distraction. So for me, it takes going into a cabin in the middle of the least populated town in the entire state of Maine and sitting out on a front deck and straight up chilling out on this deck for like 2 or 3 hours. It might not take that for you, but for a 29-year-old with ADHD, that's what it takes for me. And, I'll be honest, like coming back into this week here, I'm like already almost right back there again because it's been a really stressful week back. But I will say that despite being tired from the day to day already, again, I still did take back some pieces of reflection in that time that are making me feel fresher than I have been in the past couple months, because I did do that I think that will stay here and yield me some good results from doing that. So if you are feeling this way, find out what works for you on a day-to-day to break up the routine, to break up your thought and distraction and things that everything is trying to get your attention. Remember that. Everything on social, me on this podcast, everything in the entire world is fighting for your attention all the time. Some of it's good, a lot of it's bad. You have to find things that can take you away from that, take you to a different space, and allow you to control all of the attention just to be inward, to figure out your own shit. And it's something that I don't think people do a lot. So, with the risk of saying things cyclically more on this episode, that's all I really had to say, and that's all I really wanted to cover. And so, I'm sorry I totally have you joining right now. I'm ending out, but thank you guys for listening to the podcast. This was episode 103. We will have more interviews with creatives, business owners, and things like that next Thursday. If you want to check out our build project, we'll have a new video out tomorrow on Friday on the YouTube channel showing more of the build, showing the negotiation process for closing on this property, which was an absolute nightmare. But thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Have an awesome weekend. Go kill it.